Hello, this is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast, coming to you once again from the studios at DTM Enterprises, my little wood shop in the backyard. Today we have another special guest. Frank has come in to tell his story today. I known Frank pretty good. I've known him from the time I walked in the door, and he's been an open. We've spent time together in and outside of our normal meeting spots, and I've gotten to watch him, so I know him pretty well, although I do not really know. I haven't heard him speak and tell his story before. Before we get into that, let me quickly point you to spiritualunderground.org. That is where you can see show notes. You can see pictures of the guests, links to the podcasts, and also a contact me page there, so that you can get a hold of me and let me know if there's something that you might have any questions, or if you want to be on the podcast. And I encourage the feedback too. I can't get any better at this unless people give me some feedback about whether if they like it or don't like it, or what might change and what I might do different. The music wrapped around the podcast is by Darren Frank. Most of you guys will know that, but if this is the first time you're here, and I want you to know that. And also go out to Amazon and get James Christopher Cohn's 12-Step Spiritual Recovery. We call it TSSR. It is the 12 steps built for everyone. My life was revolutionized when I came through the steps. We really sit around and go that you hear all the time that we wish that everybody had these principles in their lives, and now it is available and made in a way that you don't have to have the normal isms. So once again, James Christopher Cohn, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery on Amazon, and you can get a hard copy of it or on Kindle. So with that behind us, we will get started here. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it'll be fun. I looking forward to it. It's warming up out here, though, and I've been running a heater most of the time. The podcast has been going on in the cold weather, so I warm up the shop, and then I turn off the heater so we don't hear it. But like, it's warm today, and I look at the thermometer over there, and it says 86 degrees outside, and it's 76 in here. And I think maybe they can hear the air conditioner, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to run it until it becomes an issue. So most of the time we start out, what I usually ask a person is, what is their sobriety date? That was a monumental day for me,
right,
and most of us, and then we will just begin our conversation and go from there.
Okay, sounds great.
Anything that you find interesting?
How'd that happen?
That was, I don't know, that was a spiritual intrusion there.
Yeah, no doubt. My YouTube just decided to start playing and leave and take off on the podcast that I was listening to previous.
Right.
Close all these apps. So we'll get back to that. Sobriety date.
So my sobriety date is April 2nd, 2013.
Which was 1 month ago from tomorrow.
1 month ago from tomorrow, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So 6 years.
6 years celebrated. And you would have celebrated with us last night, but you bumped out to next month.
Right. And that's good too. I'm in a marriage with somebody else in recovery. We met in recovery, and so she's doing her birthday, and we kind of take turns or play around with that, and but that's really important to me.
Yeah.
And I saw no reason not to skip it, so I could be there and experience that with her.
Yep. Real cool. Interesting. You both have April birthdays too. I
didn't know that. Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Well, she's celebrating now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Us two. I thought you meant you do.
No, you and her.
Yeah, no, it is kind of weird. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So.
Because a lot of groups celebrate the end of the month, and
right.
And I guess that there's actually a few things aligned there. Between being April, that apparently your home groups are on the same night of the week.
Right.
That probably works out really well most of the time, because you go do your thing on Tuesdays and she goes does her thing on Tuesdays. Until birthday time comes around, it's never a conflict.
Exactly, and it's almost it's funny, because actually her meeting is like less than a mile from my home group.
Oh, is it?
And it's pure coincidence. I mean, we didn't.
If you believe in those things.
No, I don't. I absolutely do. Yeah. I don't think there's a former sponsor used to always say there's no waste in God's economy.
Yeah.
And I find that to be absolutely true.
Yeah, that is cool. I love it when things align like that. That's neat. So where do you want to start?
Well, I think, in my
at the
story,
end?
At the end, I was going to start at the very beginning, but I will say, just kind of heads up, my stories tend to go Tarantino style. So you'll be in one period of time, we might switch to another. That's just how it goes.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
this goes the way it goes. There's no rules. There's no
right.
It would actually be, and I like it that way. I think it's a little organic when we just talk and we just share, and you happen to circle around. That's natural. Otherwise, if you were like, maybe if I had some timeline scripted over here where I could keep everything straight, but then it'd lose some of the flavor.
Right. And I don't use a script, and I honestly have not planned. I try to push thoughts out of my head.
Yeah.
Although there are certain things that I know I got to cover. That I will cover, but that I do like to just play it by ear and just trust that it'll come out as it needs to, whether I think it sounds good or not. That's the big thing, whether I think it sounds good or not.
Yeah.
It could sound like crap, but still serve a great purpose.
Yeah.
At least to me, sound like crap.
Right. Yep.
So
we're our own worst critics and all that, and another thing with this alignment, this true north alignment, this compass needle being pointed in the right direction as I walk a path, and I kind of do my course corrections, and one other thing is being in the flow of things.
Yeah.
Is that I've yet to edit a single one of these podcasts.
Right.
They just work.
Right. Exactly.
And that's also a signal to me that things are going well. Every single one of them is. I have been. Well, the one I released this past Sunday, Mark, was the 25th podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been that many.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Right.
And not and no editing.
Right.
I did try to clip out some acorns hitting the roof one time, but I was like, that's
whatever.
Yeah, no big deal.
So, yeah. So, I just want to say, I remember back when, it seems like we met in a coffee shop just to toss around the idea not that long ago.
Yeah.
So this is really another example of something that's obviously meant to be, and it's happening.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
So, I want to start out actually with gratitude, and then I think that's just important, and we're talking, something that I like to say a lot of times about my life now is the life that almost didn't happen.
Yep.
Because I got close to death. In fact, I remember sitting on a couch, and trying to talk to my dead wife, assuming that I was going to be joining her soon. And that's where my intervention basically started. Or that's when what I now call my awakening first began. But, in terms of my story, I started out my childhood. There's some things there that I know influenced me. And, I have a lot of opinions, so I try to let you know it's an opinion. But, an opinion I have is that most of us have some kind of traumatic or difficult experiences as a child. And
I agree.
I think that the main theme of mine was, I had a physical problem. I don't know when it showed up, but I started wetting my pants. Not to talk about sleeping, not a bedtime thing, but actually during the middle of the day in school. My parents took me to probably, I don't know how many psychiatrists, psychologists, urologists, everybody else in the world they could find, and everybody said I was just fine. So they were convinced, eventually they got convinced, even though they tried to get help for me, they eventually got convinced that this is all in my head, I'm just doing this on purpose. So, it was pretty traumatic. Because I would be in school, and I always wear long shirts so I could cover myself up because I was going to pee.
Yeah.
And then I'd stand away from people so they couldn't tell. I things like that were fun, like dodgeball or PE, I didn't want to run. And so that, we talked about ego and what a huge impact of insecurities that has created in me.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
And the horrors of talking to people. I was afraid to talk to you close because you might smell, and I did not see an end in sight. Turns out I couldn't help it. But even I myself convinced myself I did. So you talk about some self-doubt being indoctrinated into you.
Yeah.
Not trusting your own instincts or whatever,
Yeah. So you just kind of thought you weren't trying hard enough to stop it.
And then I'd lie about it. That's one thing that's really important too, is that dishonesty is definitely a part of my story. And the ability to look at my mom or dad's face and say, no, I'm fine. I'm dry. Sure. And if I could convince them, then it was true.
Yeah. Interesting.
So so if you bought the lie, that lie becomes reality.
Yeah. That had been rough. I can't.
Yeah. Looking back.
Other kids are horrible when it comes to the find your button.
Oh yeah.
And just poke it and poke it and poke it.
Well, and what's amazing in my memory is it seems like I got away with it an awful lot, which is a hard thing to get away with, which tells you how skilled I became in covering shit up.
Yeah, no doubt. Another addict alcoholic skill is
absolutely
hiding it and secrets and covering our bases.
Right. And even though it wasn't my fault, to this day, like a fifth step was a relief to actually say out loud, I wet my pants when I was a kid.
Yep.
And several other things too. I may not go into all of them, but stuff that I did this was just like so freeing. It's amazing. Because even though it was long gone and all of that, there was still, I think deep in my subconscious, still had guilt and still had all that kind of stuff going on, and I can't tell you how beautiful it is to lose some of that.
Yeah.
They ended up finding out what was wrong, and I had surgery, and it was, a really very painful surgery. I was 10 years old. The one thing I remember is my grandmother was there, and she just couldn't stand it. So I was collecting these little NFL football helmets. I had like 2 or 3 of them. She went out and bought the whole NFL.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because she felt so bad about what was happening to me, so. But anyway, so that's sort of my beginning, I guess. That's what really...
So that fixed that like boom, bang.
The surgery, bang, and that's the other thing too. Bang, it's gone. Where did it go? What happened? So then you have, it's almost like an amputated leg. Like where's, that feeling, that sense to hide, you don't understand that you don't have it. It's really strange.
Yeah.
And I remember that, like being excited about going to school again without it, and just felt weird. I still felt like I had to cover stuff up, and I think to some extent, like nerves, I would do stupid shit because I'd be so nervous I would act foolish. It's kind of like what I have learned is what's in your mind is what becomes your reality.
Yeah
And it's kind of an unfortunate thing for people who have anxiety. I hate that, because if you're thinking about what awful things can happen, that's what you're telling the universe you want.
Yeah and they manifest. They come around.
Exactly.
Yeah, I fully believe that.
Yeah So my first drink, and it wasn't my first drink. I was early doing it. I don't talk about this a lot, but I like had some older cousins that were hippies, and I just thought they were the coolest people in the world. And I wanted to smoke marijuana early on. I just wanted to be a hippie, because I knew they did that and all this. So my actual first alcohol was a glass of wine. And I was probably 10, 11 years old then. It didn't do anything for me. But I remember being 13 years old in the 7th grade at a mixer party in somebody's basement. And a friend of mine brought a half pint of some kind of cheap, bourbon. And we finished it off. And for the first time in my life, with all my insecurities, I was very comfortable talking to girls. I could flirt with them. And so I think at that point in time, it was love at first sight.
Right.
I mean, it really was. When I saw the power that had on me, and I just felt like I felt so much better than I think I'd ever felt in my entire life.
Yeah.
So,
I have same kind of story. That's that once that started allowing me to socialize, especially with females, but it really helped me out on both male and females, because I felt like I couldn't be heard.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it seemed like I was interesting. All of a sudden, and other people, I could socialize. I could
talk about whatever. And I remember like when I started the 7th grade, because of my insecurities and stuff, like I ended up getting made fun of. I was talking about my reality, it becomes my reality. Like I don't know what it was, but like girls would start saying my name and laughing at me and all this stuff in 7th grade, which is also just torture.
Yeah.
By the end of the 7th grade, they're talking about how cool I was.
Yeah.
And alcohol had something to do with that, actually. So, I mean, I don't see how I couldn't not like it. Although I did get sick, and I can remember stuff like getting sick and still drinking soon, getting in trouble early on with alcohol.
Caught with it?
No.
Or doing things as a result that got you in trouble?
You got having somebody call to pick me up in a ditch when I was 15 years old. And then waking up at 11 a.m. on a school day, not knowing why I was there, and realized that everybody carried me home, and I was in a total blackout, and still don't know everything I did. So I mean, the warning signs were everywhere, and I just didn't see them.
Yeah. I wasn't educated in them.
Right.
I had no idea.
Right. So I guess I am kind of going in a
Linear fashion
so far.
We'll screw that up sooner or later.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm gonna see what popped in my head. And we'll just see how it goes.
My first drunk was here in this house. Now I drank before then.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in this same house.
Right. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
But in the same dining room table that's in there now was my grandma's, and it's been refinished, and then Mom and Dad had it, and it's still here today.
Right.
At the same table, sitting around playing grown up. Now I had drinks before where I didn't drink. Didn't get drunk. Like you said, something about a glass of wine. I'd have a drink of Dad's beer between getting it and bringing it to him.
Exactly.
Or, my uncle always drank whiskey and water, and he'd give me little sips of that. So I had this, but the first time I actually had the feeling was here, and I got sicker than a dog and woke up the next day and didn't know what happened. And luckily my friends had cleaned up behind us.
Right.
And left it looking just like, just put me to bed. And left and cleaned all the garbage out. So mom come home and didn't. I still can remember her shaking me and asking me what's the matter, and me telling her I didn't feel good.
Right.
And she's like, "Well, okay, get some rest."
Right. Yeah. See, I wasn't that lucky. I got caught several times, but.
Well, I got caught later. That first time I didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, and I don't go into a lot of detail. I had all the stuff. I had 2 car crashes. Never got a DUI.
Really.
And. I think that had to do with the lessons I learned on how to con. Because back in the early 80s, when I was in my 20s and getting pulled over in those situations, I could con. And they didn't look into it as much. I remember once totaling a car, sitting in the back of a police car with a cop and with the medic guy checking out my eyes and making sure I didn't have a concussion. And the one guy, the medic guy, was smiling as big as he could smile, like he was about to laugh at me. And with that cop in that car, and I left that car, and they never did anything. I had just been almost dying. I remember I used to like to go to the gorge and party, and I like this is yeah. So I took LSD, and I also drank tons. Got in a car, driving around in the gorge with rain, which is about as stupid as you can be. Lost control of the car, headed for like the left side of the hill, and somehow or another I hit something, and my car flew up and hit the embankment on the right side, and we lived.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's some close calls there.
Yeah, River Gorge is no place to be messing around.
No. So.
Not drunk and high.
No. So, and it's funny because these weird concepts of alcohol versus drugs versus all this stuff, and I was into all of it. If it would mess me up, then, make me feel different or better, I'm all for it. No consequences.
Yeah.
I don't care,
Yeah, I was an equal opportunity user, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. And,
I actually liked it when somebody would have something that I hadn't done before. Well, let's try that,
sure.
Where you really ought to be scared,
Oh yeah. I almost think, I'm fortunate that some things didn't come my way,
Yeah.
But a lot of things did.
Yeah.
And, college was the same way. I went to college, and it was just like
Where'd you go to school at?
I went to Murray for 2 semesters.
Uh-huh.
I ended up putting on probation, and I quit.
Uh-huh.
Because I couldn't put down the drugs.
Yeah.
And so I just, I got known as a very, well, actually, my nickname in college was Captain Quaalude, so that tells you about that experience. Actually during that college period and going back some too, my story, spirituality and spiritual growth has been a huge part of what my recovery has been about. It's funny because I can remember taking LSD and mushrooms and all of these things and reading Ram Dass books and some of this stuff, and I was already really spiritually curious and beginning to read about some Eastern stuff and things at that age, and I felt so drawn to it. But they didn't, of course, it didn't last, and I was just talking to my wife about this yesterday about the LSD, and what I did was I've learned that enlightenment kind of comes to you. You take the steps, but it comes to you. It's waiting for you, and it comes to you. From my opinion, again, is that it does that. And what LSD did was it brought it to me right away, whether I was ready or not. And then it was gone, and so was the enlightenment. I was back in the shit world. So that's my experience with that. Take it or leave it. But I feel like I've gone full circle in a way, because now I am actually living the things I was talking about when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I mean, that has become the center of my life.
I had some really interesting experiences on acid and psychedelics.
Right.
And I wouldn't call them bad. I never had any bad ones. I actually had a fantastic time. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Right.
It's hard to manage.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you could, especially like living at home and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
You
Oh, yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
got to
Oh,
be
yeah.
really careful about doing it.
Uh-huh.
But we got good about like setting the stage for good trips.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And now looking back, I see what that, there was some kind of like spiritual experience that went along with a lot of those things. I had no idea what was going on.
Right.
Because of pouring alcohol and anything else in you at the same time.
Sure.
I had to be careful because I could find myself a little bit romancing that today.
Yeah. And exactly. I am safely afraid of it.
Yeah.
And safely, I've spent a lot of time letting go of a lot of fears, but one fear I don't want to ever lose is the fear of drugs and alcohol. I want to be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Because I have a disease that I know how tricky it is. So.
Yeah, it's not. It's not lost on me 1 second that if I just start doing anything, I will just lead. I will be like a dog on a trail, mm-hmm. and it'll lead me back to everything.
Oh yeah, and like I say, well, and actually this is interesting. This another thought is, I actually had, my story was I was sober for 20 years.
Right.
And
so like what kind of time frame would that have been age wise? Not
92,
year, but
1992.
So about how old were you?
I would have been 31 because it was, my birthday's in July, so that would make it. It was in January, so that would have been I was 31 years old.
That you got sober the first time and put together 20 years after that.
Yeah, I'm 58 now. That puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
So, and it was good. I mean, it was good sobriety. I felt so much better and a lot of other things. But there was something that was just not there. I mean, and it's, of course, it's easy to say there was something not there because I feel like I have a much better recovery. And after relapse, you want to say that you didn't have.
Something had to be missing.
It had to be missing. And it was. And so, yeah, and I was, basically in treatment, a counselor, and we both know who that is. Like, I was just desperately freaked out. I think he said my eyes were like deers in headlights. Like, how the fuck did I end up sitting here in this bad shape, yellow skin, in a treatment center after 20 years of sobriety? So he spent some time with me, and the guy's never sponsored me. He saved a lot of lives, and certainly I have, the treatment experience I had and just knowing him today, he has definitely had a major impact on saving my life. And I think it was no accident at all that I ended up where I ended up, that I had that one group session with him where he said, took some time aside and said, this guy needs some help, and one of those other miracles,
Yeah.
So
how bad was it when you first got sober? What was going on in your life in the 30s?
In my 30s.
20s and 30s.
Well, yeah. Well, let me go. I answer that, and that makes me have to go back. Basically, it was like, I've heard it called back problems.
Yep.
I had a job, and I didn't understand what they were saying. I was getting in all kinds of trouble. They were showing the reports of what I wasn't doing and printouts of all these things and all this stuff. And I didn't understand how probationary it was. That's how, in denial I was about everything. And I remember them specifically saying, do you need to take a break? Is there any way you need to go for a while or something? It's like they were trying to say the EAP, but they had no clue what it was. But they were trying to get me to, dude, you need to do something here. Because you're going to get fired. And there was that. And interestingly enough, I conned my way out of that, just like pristine, no problems, even though my performance didn't get better.
Huh.
So there you go again to that conning, which I thought that's a perfect example actually of a coping skill that worked, that's actually deadly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so that was one of them, and it was also my wife was threatening to leave. Now my ex-wife, my kids were young, and stuff started happening. Like I do remember one time, like I had one of my kids was afraid. I was like 6 years old, maybe something like that, 7 years old, and had a fear of showers, and stuff. Didn't like them. Just really made her upset. So they were sitting in the tub, and I was drunk, and they wanted to turn the tub on. I had to turn the shower on, and I couldn't turn it off. And they're screaming bloody murder. The one kid scaring the other kid, and I'm just like trying to mess with this thing, not knowing if it's hot or cold.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit. But the funny thing was, all of that, what it took was and I was a New Year's Day guy at that time. A guy, my sister-in-law and her husband, my brother-in-law, came over for New Year's Eve. It's just the four of us, and he was in recovery for a year. And I'm always like, now I don't have to drink in front of you. I don't need to drink, if you don't, all of that kind of shit, And he just kind of like gave me a look. And he ended up 12-stepping me too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that night, like they're all standing around, and I'm like talking. I go outside to light fireworks in my hand. They're taking them out of my hand so my fingers don't blow up. And I didn't remember half of it. I wanted to show them these videos I had recorded, and they weren't playing right, and it was just like, and apparently I couldn't even talk. So it's like, okay, first of all, I didn't tell the story that I had poured the booze out like 2 days before. Then I was done, no more alcohol.
Oh yeah.
And then because it's New Year's Eve with all sober people, Al-Anon and AA folks in my house, here I am, throwing them back, and somehow or another, like my wife, ex-wife, I got to give her a lot of credit. Her willingness to confront me saved my life. And I say that I wasn't anywhere near death, except that I'd had a couple accidents, and we all know what kind of trail we're on and the high risk we have. But she had, I swore it all off, and she said she was going to leave me. And then next thing you know, I'm drinking beer. I thought that was fine. I was just going to have 3 or 4 beers. And she was like, what the hell? And I thought it was perfectly fine. And then I looked down and saw that beer in my hand and remembered the night before and thought, holy shit, she's right.
Yeah.
So, and there you go. I called this guy. He 12-stepped me. And I saw him, at a recovery meeting where I was telling my story. I hadn't seen him in years.
Really?
And he showed up to my story. Yeah, I was so like, what a blessing that was.
Yeah.
I mean, to see him and talk to him about what's happened and stuff, and he absolutely just ate it up. Juicy for big time juice, both of us.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah.
So this was back in that early 30s, the early 90s.
Yeah.
This guy, and you've seen him lately.
I just saw him again. Yeah,
Wow.
out of nowhere. Yeah, like I say, well, I went to speak. I was asked to speak at a sponsee's first year token. Sponsee, I love the hell out of. I mean, just I love all of them.
Yeah.
Really do. But anyway, so he was there, and I just loved talking to him.
That's very cool.
And reminding this guy, by the way, dude, even though I relapsed, it doesn't matter because he got the whole concept of recovery that was in me that somehow or another snapped out at the last minute again was first planted by him.
Yeah. Had he been sober the whole time?
Yeah.
Wow.
A long, long time. Yeah. He had never had a relapse.
That is cool.
Lost train of thought. I was going, oh yes, and I'll go ahead and say this. I careful about it because my ex-wife doesn't know this, so I hope she's not hearing it. Doesn't get her feelings hurt. I mean, we get along great. She's wonderful and all that, so I don't think she would. But I somehow had the idea that if I like wore a tie, went to work, came home and had a few drinks, that I wasn't, and I wasn't like smoking weed or drinking anything else much anymore, that I was a respectable citizen and therefore I was fine. I mean, I lived in that lie, started going to multiple liquor stores though, because I didn't want somebody to see me buy all that shit in one place.
Yep. Done that.
But anyway, so, my first marriage, started out, this is an idea why you don't want to get married when you're like blasted all the time. Was a misunderstanding. I really didn't propose. She thought I did. And I didn't have the nerve to tell her I didn't. So I went on with it.
Yeah, I've heard that before. That is amazing. Yeah.
And you know, it was we finally decided mutually to separate after 20 years. It took 20 years.
20 years on this accidental proposal. To finally go, this is not working.
Yeah. You know, and I understand now. It's really interesting. I see younger guys now with wives that they were with when they got sober, and things have changed so much. I don't know how accurate my experience is, but I can see that same thing that we dealt with.
Yeah.
Just turns the relationship upside down. Totally.
Yeah, because you're not the same people anymore, especially the recovered person.
Yeah. So, you know, we stuck it out for the kids, and I think, you know, at some point in time, I think we got to where we were arguing so bad all the time, we just couldn't stand each other, that we realized, you know, we can't do this anymore. I mean, as much as we want to fight to hold it together and all this stuff, it's just not going to work.
It's not working.
So, and I do think overall there was a level of recovery I was missing. You know, I hadn't delved down as deep as I did this time. On all levels, both in my step work and in my spiritual program. So.
Yeah, you always have to wonder about when a slip happens.
Yeah.
And what was it? You know, was there some deficiency, or was it, you know, what? You know,
yeah.
Because I don't think that's always the case.
Well,
that's not necessarily. But most of the time, you could usually get to something that.
Yeah.
If you do the work, you can find out, you know, what was still laying there. Scary thing about it is you don't know that, right? And so, I can be standing here in some level of confidence today with something laying there that I've got no idea about, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so in my case, you know, I have back problems, you know, and
you mean real lower back problems?
Yeah, this time I'm not
talking about. Because have you heard the thing, not the back problems, like you got your shit back?
Yeah.
I got my car back, my wife back, my kids back, my job's back.
Well, you know, and we were struggling financially, all this stuff. So here I am living this middle class life, and everything looks good too. That's partially where, for a long time, where my recovery became more shallow. I'm about to sneeze, by the way. So.
Yeah. Go ahead. Bless you.
That was loud. All right, so I want to talk. So anyway, that's all that. I want to talk about my next time around, my relapse, and all of that.
Yeah.
And some of the things I went through. So at some point in time, around 15 years of recovery or something, I got married again, and relationship was a whole lot better, you know. And she used to always say, you know, that's why I say it's not like all bad. You know, she used to always say that my way of acknowledging when I was wrong was like just amazing to her, you know, and that was me still using the 10th step, you know, totally like, you know what, you're right, rather than what you would expect from a lot of times in a relationship, like, what are you talking about? You know, I was able to do that. And we had and I actually, it's interesting, there's a whole very complex thing with that relationship. You know, I keep getting more information about it spiritually all the time. But it was bizarre. Not like it happened before, and this is no offense to anybody else, but it was like real massive, in love, crazy, like out of control, dangerous, right away. And I now see that there was a reason for that. I now understand what happened there. But while we were married, and like I say, I wasn't working much of a program. I was going once a week. My life, I felt happiness. Happiness, again, in the sense that I've got a great relationship. I like being around my wife. Didn't get along with my kids great, but one I certainly did, you know, and another one I kind of did too. But I injured my back pretty bad. I got put on pain pills. Now, mind you, I had had nose surgery, kidney stones. I think that's only 2 times, but I had taken pain pills and I gave them to my ex-wife, and she controlled them. I didn't even talk to my wife about it. I just took them. I would say ignorant. No, it wasn't ignorant because I knew. It was just blind confidence. Something in there was like shutting me up, and it's hard to know because it's like a blackout, you know, in a way. I was blacking out some reality here and saying the 3 fatal words of the ego, I got this.
Yeah, I got this.
Well, and it's crazy because I did for a little bit. I'm like, hey, I can take these fine. I don't even need help. Look at this. 6 hours, I can have one. But then after 2 hours, I decided I couldn't remember if I had one or not. Next thing you know, I'm going to another doctor, and then there it goes. And then I get other psychiatric problems get worse. My anxiety keeps getting worse, so I get some other pills from another doctor.
Yeah.
So I'll play back and forth. And then, of course, I'm stealing pills from everybody I know.
I can relate to that one.
I know you can, and it was just really bad. And my wife then, like, her parents drink very successfully. They will love to try some really cool beer. We go out to eat. And the three of them, my wife and her parents, those two, would share 2 glasses of wine. So that's their experience with alcoholism. They did not get it. It wasn't in the family anywhere.
Wow.
So she didn't catch on. And I got in trouble eventually we had this guy painting our house that was a friend of a partner in her law firm. So, I need to make a good impression there. Obviously, I don't want word going back. Well, he was talking to me in the middle of a sentence I would nod out. And he told my wife. My wife called my sponsor. My sponsor, by the way, was pretty much like, this guy's pretty well gone. God love, pray about him all the time, but he's gone. I mean, he's lying to me, and he'd be honest. And every time I talked to him, he was like, you're going to die. We lost him. I know you know him too, and I don't know if it's okay to say his name or not, but,
Well, my understanding of the anonymity is that once a person is passed, then it doesn't apply anymore. But we can always use first names and last initials or first names if you want to. It is an honor for some people,
I think in this case, because he was such a huge person in the community and everybody knew it, Keith Loren.
Yeah.
And I to this day love that man.
Yeah.
He saved my life. He was one of the kindest people I have ever known.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And so lucky to have him in my life. So,
one of those guys that you just instantly knew there was something different about Keith.
There was. He was on such a high spiritual plane, so to speak. And he was a guy I always remember. He could come into to a meeting with 100 people, and he would talk to most of them, and he would know exactly what's going on with each of them. He was that out of himself, to where he wanted to know, And but he talked to me. He knew something was up, and kept telling me he was afraid I was going to die.
Is he your sponsor from before too?
Yeah, he's before. He watched all this happen and was like, at some point in time, it's like, Frank, something's not right here. Well,
yeah.
So I don't, it's almost like it was questionable to what extent he was sponsoring me, I think, at some point in time, because it's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not remaining sponsorable.
Yeah.
Well, the guy can only do so much.
And I'm going to bring this up because it's, I remember I used to go to psychics, and I can talk about my spirituality for a time later, but I remember, this is changing the subject again, but going once, and before my third child was born, and psychic said, there's a gift coming to you. This is somebody you've known for years and years and years, and it's going to be a wonderful relationship. And it has been.
Yeah.
We have a tie that is amazing. And I'm not saying that, but there's something just really unusual there. And each of my kids I have a very unique relationship with and love that didn't always have in my recovery, actually. But she came to me, and everybody thought, except for me, she came to me after I came home from college the first semester, for us about to get her grades and find them out, is when she wanted to tell me she thinks she has a drinking problem. Everybody else is like, ha, 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 sure. I knew, because I knew her, and I knew by the way she told me, and I was the only one that was in recovery in the family, I knew she wasn't lying.
Yeah.
You can't make that lie to me. And she was good at it too, by the way. She was also a professional when it comes to lying.
Yeah.
And so, I took her to a few meetings, and I guess if there's pride in anything I do, I would say that was an area where I could say that, because I did just totally back off.
Did you?
I took her to 2 meetings, and I remember a couple of women I wanted her to hopefully meet, and I was about to introduce them, and then she connected with them anyway.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Very
so that
cool.
helped, yeah.
Yeah.
So her sobriety began, and then she went in a halfway house for a while, and then decided she wasn't an alcoholic, it was just a phase. Everybody else believed her.
Really?
But who do you think didn't?
Yeah, right.
I knew it all along, and I remember telling her, look, I love you, I will spend time with you, but I want it to be abundantly clear always that I know you're lying and that you are having a problem. But that doesn't mean, I can't make you do anything. And we'll still hang out, nothing's going to change in the relationship yet.
Very big, yeah.
Yet. Now, I didn't know if I ever would have to make it change.
Right.
And at one point in time, she called me from the healing place, called me and said, I'm going into the healing place. And it was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
The floodgates of joy and relief just opened up.
Right.
Because I didn't want to see any of my kids die. That's just one thing you don't want to see.
No doubt.
And
just the pain and everything. Shoot, the dying is one thing too, and we get that, but the whole circus that's wrapped up around addiction and alcoholism is a very painful thing to watch, especially when you know.
Right.
It's bad for the ones that don't know. The parents are like, what is wrong with it? And you're like, yeah, I know what's wrong.
I know exactly what's going on. Yeah. And I want to stay off of her story just to say that little piece of it. But I do always tell this, so.
Yeah.
And that is when she, called me and said she's going to the healing place, she's going to lose her phone. I got a call from the healing place like a month and a half later. This place is terrible, Dad. I mean, they are awful here. I got to get out. Now, I'm going to stay sober. I'm like, no. You can't live at home. You got to stay there. And so I made her stay. I didn't make her stay, but I didn't give her the option to come and live with me.
Right.
Afterwards, she did, and it was, and she's been sober ever since. And of course now I can talk about my grandbaby, but I'm not ready to cry that much yet, so I think I'll leave that alone for now. But but what happened, the reason why I tell that story is it came full circle. Her dad now, is in terrible shape. And I didn't know things. I didn't even know this. I didn't know for sure if she knew, but hell, she would drive by my house to pull me back in the house because I had this thing going on the front porch and passing out. With the door half open, and I had a dog in the house, so she'd have to drive by to check, make sure Dad wasn't. If he's out of the house and in danger, I don't know somewhere, but he's on the front porch, I'll pull him back in.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So one day, all I can say is I had a good supply on me. Oh, backing up here, it goes to Tarantino. I'm going to go back to my wife. Second wife. One day she came home with a sunburn, really bad. She started having blisters on her skin and stuff, places that we thought was probably related to the sunburn, some weird stuff.
Wow.
Went to an allergist, got on this special diet, and it continued. So she goes to it got kind of really bad. So she goes to our doctor, and both of our doctors had the same doctor, and get sent off to specialists. They were looking at rheumatoid arthritis because they were on to the fact that it was an autoimmune disease that was acting up for the first time. Well, there was actually one other time in her life where she got this crazy same rash, so we know it was been there dormant probably before. And she got sick real quick. They diagnosed it, figured out what it was, and this is actually like odds. I don't know why they always say 10 in a million, why they don't say 1 in 100,000. But they said 10 in a million people get the lung part of this, which she got.
Oh, wow.
Or she, loved her family, wanted to be with them on Christmas. We did that. She caught something. 3 weeks later, she died.
Wow.
And I was madly in love at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That was the beginning of my enlightenment, actually. Didn't know it then, but I know it now. I consider myself on a path of enlightenment, and it really started when she died. And it still breaks me up. It was such a sad thing. And her parents, I love them so much, and just what they have gone through. So here we go, jumping around again, and I'm thinking about it. This is what recovery is.
Yeah.
So my current wife, her parents, who are now great-grandparents, as far as I'm concerned, they're great-grandparents. They're still family in my mind, and that makes them family, and in my heart.
Right.
But we celebrated Christmas together, and I'm thinking like, how often does this happen where your second wife's deceased, their parents show up and hang out and get along well with your current wife
Yeah.
and your and their great granddaughter and my granddaughter.
Yep.
That's
yeah,
just
usually when those things sever, there's separation happens there, and
yeah.
might be some periphery exposure, but not like spending
No.
holidays together.
Right. Oh yeah, and that's true too. Yeah, we don't, but there's definitely a strong bond that stayed, and we can spend time together. Now I'm circling back again to where so I get all these great drugs, right? I get pills, and I had really bad asthma, and I went in one night. The next day, I just called my daughters by my kids by rank. I have an older son, 2 daughters. So the middle daughter shows up at my house, comes in, and my lips are blue. 'Cause, so she picks up the phone. I learned all this, and I didn't see any of it, and calls my younger daughter and says, "My dad's lips are blue. Any idea what I should do?" Yeah, call 911. So she calls 911. Now I do remember going to the hospital. And it was as simple as this. I'm sure I've been, overdose level more than once, but I also had bad asthma at the time, which what happens to your respirations on these opioids, and I had some diazepines too I'd gotten a hold of, and I managed to get the doctor to prescribe hydrocodone syrup in a nice sized bottle.
Yeah.
So I drank
one of
that.
my favorites.
Yeah, I drank that like a bottle of liquor. That thing was gone on top of the rest of them, and I really felt like I was dying. Actually, I remember thinking, Can you see me, Lee? I'm coming. Can you see me, Lee? I'm coming. I'm gonna be here soon. I really remember thinking that. And so I get rushed to the hospital. I remember thinking, going down the stairs. One of the jokes is I'm in this gurney, right? They're taking me down these kind of steep concrete stairs, and the neighbors were out. I'm like, oh shit, what are the neighbors gonna think? Okay, and this is the guy that they see halfway hanging out his door every day.
Yeah, right.
But what are they going to think? And I actually cared about that, of all things. So, in the hospital, comes back around to my daughter, because she was the one that wasn't going to lie about it, and she was the one that was willing to put our relationship completely at risk by saying that I just watched my stepmom die, who they were extremely close.
Yeah.
Changed her life. My daughter's life was changed by that, by Lee. And I'm not going to watch you die. I can't do it. So I will no longer be in your life. You will not see or hear from me unless you do something. And I didn't have many friends left. Had a former sponsee in the room, Keith, and my aunt. That's all it was. And I was, lying about that. I thought it was all about this one event that happened in the hospital. That is like I got to tell my story, because it was just like one of the best parts of my youth. Is that when I went to the hospital, somehow or another I managed to scrape up some pills, put them in a little container in my pocket. Went to the hospital, talked about all the meds I was on. I think I brought a lot of them too. They went through them all, but not the ones I had in my pocket and in a bottle I had. So it was a diazepine, right? And so I'm laying in bed on an oxygen mask in the ICU, and I really couldn't take the mask off well, but they had these little holes in the mask. I was dropping the pills in there.
In through the holes.
In through the holes. And of course some of them didn't make it in. Some of them would fall on the floor or go, but I got enough in. But they were landing on my chest. So the nurse comes in, freaks out, because let's see, basically they see these Xanaxes all over my chest. They kind of knew something was up.
Right.
I told them it was cholesterol medicine, and for once my great slick whatever didn't work. They knew otherwise, and that's where I got in big trouble. The respiratory doctor was furious, but they still prescribed some to me. And they still prescribed the pain pill to me. And that was because I think they wanted to keep me maintained while I was in there. They didn't want to have to deal with seizures in addition to all the other respiratory stuff.
Yeah, because pulling you off of that is not quite the thing to do right now.
It wasn't enough to do anything, but it was enough to heat off a problem.
Stave off the withdrawals, the serious withdrawals.
So it's kind of like that kid who came to me, I was now coming to her. They called a Brook person over to see how bad I was. And I didn't have to lie. I told him that, yes, I want to kill myself. Because, shockingly, that's what I wanted to do. At that moment, I was about to die, and I wanted to die. And that's why I say this. Anything else after that is a life that almost didn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
Somehow or another, God had a different plan. And came in there and somehow or another wrestled out of this, because the guy that was in extreme denial, still lying about the pills on his chest, totally denying that it was, just that one incident.
Yep. This little isolated incident.
Yeah.
Not my whole history.
Spilled everything out to the therapist in front of my family.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And I was just wailing, crying on that bed. I want to die. I want to die. Just let me die. But when I went into the doors of the Brook on an ambulance, something hit me like, thank God I'm here, and they're going to lock me up. There's hope. They will lock me behind those doors, and they're going to do some voodoo on me or something.
Yeah.
But, I don't want to, I'm not safe. I will take pills if they're given to me, if I have them. I will take drugs if I get them. And I do want to die. So, I do a little commercial for a facility. I'm not really big on that, but I will say that the Brook saved my life.
Right.
It really did. And we talked about the counselor that I met in there and all of that. And I left that place so pumped. I mean, to tell you that I was like, the first thing I did was go through all the steps again. I asked Keith if he would sponsor me still, and he said he was. And when they were doing the intervention, he said, "You're making a good, sober decision. I'm so proud of you."
Yeah.
Not like, "You dumbass.
Yeah.
You've been taking these pills and lying all this time." He's like, "Frank, I am so happy for you."
Yeah,
that's
right.
all he said. The total love.
Yeah.
And I'm
Beautiful.
here to help you. So, anyway,
that's a big choice to make, because that's a tough thing. I've been pretty blessed, and that's something that I haven't dealt with a lot of people, going back out and coming back.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
we're kind of a solid group. We, most of the people who are relapsing in our group are doing it early on, like we so often do, the bumping out.
Yeah.
And you kind of come to expect that, but after a long time of sobriety, and we hear it and see it, but our group I can't think of people who we're not experiencing that today, and I don't have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah.
People doing it, so that's, I guess Keith, he's around a long time.
Yeah.
He just had such a gentle, caring soul that, I couldn't imagine him being like in a abrasive, an abrasive mood and over something like that.
No.
It's just perfect to go, okay, good job.
He was happy.
Yeah.
And he was like rewarding me with, praise.
Yeah.
And of course, he came to the hospital at other times. They let my sponsor come in, and, we talked about redoing it and all of this stuff and kind of how that would look. And
so you were inpatient for a period of time.
I was inpatient for a period of time, and I needed detox. I mean, because they gave me some Librium several times. My blood pressure would go through the roof. But I want to mention, when I was in the hospital, other physical problems I had. I had COPD really bad. I needed breathing treatments all throughout the day. I had a thing called Barrett's esophagus, a precancerous condition in your esophagus. Mm-hmm. I had lymphocytic colitis, which is more like, it's not as dangerous as Crohn's, but it's more in that characteristic than it is in just like your typical colitis. It's very immune disorder oriented. Diabetes. So, my high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I mean, really my days were numbered, even if I wanted to live.
Yeah.
Today, I don't even need an inhaler. I don't know what happened. I don't have that anymore. It went away. I mean, how many people can say COPD just like went poof? Yeah. I have some stomach stuff, but nothing like before. The Barrett's esophagus, they can't find that anymore. Diabetes, gone.
Wow.
No medication, gone. Perfect A1Cs for years since I've been sober. And that's a whole other experience when I get into, if I could talk about spirituality, is how all that connects to spirituality. Some folks might consider it controversial, but it was my experience.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I did the steps. I mean, I remember doing the steps with rigor. I mean, I was going to several meetings a day. I wasn't spending any time on an occupation at all at that time. I just was living off savings and working on recovery. And my life, I just got so much happier so fast. So I think maybe just kind of characteristic some of the things that have happened, because I think spirituality really is important here. I had one of the profound things that happened, and you know this, and a lot of the folks that we know, our friends, mutual friends, know this, that my wife got, was found with breast cancer,
Right.
stage 3,
Yeah.
6.5 centimeter tumor. It hadn't been there that long. It was growing fast. So she went through all the chemo treatment and stuff. And I was amazed at how you can deal with things, because my first thought was, oh my God, I'm cursed. My wife just die on me.
Yeah, right.
Immediately. She's going to die too. And all of my joy and recovery turned to like, I'm cursed. God, why do you do this to me? Pissed off again.
Yeah.
And somebody just posed a question to me, and I don't even know who it was. But it was like, I think it was it's my current sponsor was asking me the question. He said, why do you think this is the same thing? Why do you think these are two simultaneous events? And I'll say my sponsor, spirituality, is also something that has led me to look at physical problems differently.
Right. Yeah.
Because of that's part of my whole spiritual path that I've been on. And so it was awful, but we made it through. And she's still having problems, and I learned from her, because I watched her mentally, physically, and spiritually deal with health problems. Because she's had to take all kinds of medications that are still she's on that are causing problems and this and that, and she just keeps going. She just keeps on, and she cries and she gets upset, and then she turns around and she accepts things and can have joy.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's like the pain's not going to go away. The sadness is not going to go away all the time. The anger is not going to go away. But that doesn't mean I can't have joy in life.
Yeah.
And that's a good lesson for me.
Well, watching people walk through these things like that, having you remember when you came in and shared for the first time that it was what you were up against, and what was, the circumstances at hand. I know, like, in a way, I said that why I corrected that is because, like, I want to make it my problem and it's her thing, right?
Yeah.
But this is happening to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, man, no, it didn't really. You think you got? It's actually her that's the one. That's why I kind of corrected that "what happened to you" statement.
Yeah.
But we still do, as a loved one, we are going through it with our loved ones.
Yeah.
And then to watch people walk through this stuff, man, with dignity and class and bravery, courage. And continue to walk it down like that, and even at times I remember there were some real spooky times along the way.
Oh yeah.
Where things were looking grim.
Not very good. Yeah. In fact, her cancer, because of what type it was and stuff. In a way, it was good that it was that kind of cancer, because they had specifically new research that identified chemicals that can help kill it pretty well. So that was the good side. The bad side was these are some really bad chemicals. And hers, because of its rare, fast-growing type, she was like pumped with and they even told her out of the practice at Norton's Cancer Center, she was one of the top as far as the high levels of bad chemicals.
Yeah.
And she still had good times. And she was pale all the time, and just awful. It was awful. But yeah, and that's funny too, because I was going to say, she actually helped me see that it was about her, not me too, one time. Real clear. And I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed that. Really did. So.
I can climb right in my pity pot really quickly.
Yeah.
When it's really not. And again, we do go through things.
Yeah.
As on the periphery, but during the, I've yet to be the actual
person. Yeah. And I didn't, I was the caregiver, which has its own thing and all of that, which is true, and it was hard. But both of us had support systems and programs and stuff.
Yeah,
and we survived.
Yeah, what a blessing, when you think about, had she not been, and I don't know this, but I'm gonna surmise that, had she not had 12-step philosophy principles concepts in her heart, she doesn't walk through that either the way you all did.
No. Oh yeah, and again, I believe that is what, her excellent recovery is. I still attribute some of that to what you're saying. I really do.
Yeah, changes outcomes.
So, Yeah, I think I do want to talk about spirituality a little bit, actually.
Great.
Yeah, it's time. So, my spirituality started out with just very traditional, which is great, because that's one of the amazing things about 12-step recovery when it comes to the part about higher power, just how wide open that is. I mean, anybody can probably fit in there.
Yep.
Even the atheists and agnostics, there's a place. A very, we think, oh, how can they? Well, they can.
Yeah, they can.
It's that wide open.
Yep.
And for any interpretations.
Yep.
And
I'd say there's something that come to me at some point. I don't know if I heard it, somebody else say it or not, but the one way I put it as far as that blessing and how a higher power, I come in and I really was honestly encouraged to develop my own connection with my own higher power, and then. That's cool, but the best part of it is then I am not rejected for the one I choose, right?
Right.
That's where the rubber meets the road in most places, because of the whole, at least in my perception of spirituality-based things, where you need to really follow my way.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if that's really true. That's some of this stuff. I'm not really sure if I put that on myself, or if it really was presented to me that way.
Yeah.
Because I can find myself doing the same thing with this 12 steps. This is the way, man.
That's a whole other.
This
topic.
is the way.
Yes,
and it was the way for me, but doesn't mean it's the way for you.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way, and I was going to say ditto, man. Totally, that is something that, I have learned about the 12 steps. Yeah, definitely, that same perspective. But this is the only way.
Yeah.
But for me, I can't say enough. All I can say is that I can't say enough about what it did for me. And I can't say enough about what it does to other people who I see do it. That's right. What I will say. Now, I'm not saying what anybody else should do, but I'm saying this seemed to work really good for these people, including me.
Yeah, right. So you said you had go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying I was going to go back. You said you started out with a real traditional,
because I have been an agnostic for years, and I kind of went to I'll just decide there's a God, and we'll just do it that way. And that's what I did, and I really didn't have much of a very simple relationship, and it worked. Okay, that's what I'm saying. It worked great.
Yeah.
And somewhere down the road, and I don't know how it happened, but I started to think, I really don't know what happened. Something shifted me. I heard a lot of guys in our recovery thing, and I think you're one of them, talking about how opening the door to other stuff, keeping an open mind, looking and trying things, rather than just. Nothing wrong with staying on the same path, but there is a benefit to saying, what is this about?
Yeah.
And listening really careful and not being content prior to the investigation on anything spiritual. But my first change, and this was really more of still of an emotional, it was spiritual thing, was a thing called the Mankind Project. And all these things are like miracles, how I fall into them. It's like, I just was just like, how'd that happen?
Yeah.
I say this all the time. How did I get here?
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like I searched it out, but I kind of think really I'm giving myself more credit than I deserve, but I think it found me.
I made myself available to these things.
Yeah.
Somehow there is some part of me being like, I did volunteer.
Right.
So at some level I didn't resist it, for sure. So the opposite of that, but I'm with you. I would like to give myself a little credit for doing these things, but I think I fell into them. I think they were just on my path.
Right.
That whole thing of being open to this stuff, and that's what's in the 12 steps principles. It says over and over again. I was just with a guy last night, and it's in Bill Wilson's book, over and over, there's a concept of putting down setting aside your old ideas, being open to new things, to do that. And and I always reassure somebody, that doesn't mean you have to trash it forever.
Right.
That's not what we mean.
Right.
It means you just have to be able to just set it over here for a minute so that I can look at this, because if I allow this to cloud my thought on this, I'm potentially missing something.
Yeah.
So if I can set this down, and a lot of times, man, I get something that I go like this, and I go, man, this is something that's working for me. This is something that's adding to my quality of my life in recovery. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, what happens is it reflects over to this other thing in my left hand.
Yeah,
and makes it a little more powerful too.
Right.
So then being open to both is a building. It's a momentum building exercise.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's.
Who brought you to Mankind?
Well, I'd heard about it before. It's one of those things. Some of these things were picking at me years ago. I was invited in
because I'm having that experience today. From different directions, people are going, "Hey, hey," and that keeps on happening with mankind.
That's right. Well, with mankind, it kind of goes back to, I say, full circle with like all this, Ram Dass stuff in my teens and college years. That it was like picking at me then, but I just was not in a place to pick it up. And so was mankind picking at me. I wasn't ready to pick it up. But my daughter did this thing called Woman Within, which is a sister program of that. So I went to her. They call it like a celebration when you come back after your weekend ceremonial stuff and all the things you do. And I noticed several guys I knew that were in recovery. And I was like, they were there from mankind who tries to come and show up and support Women Within stuff too, just because it's brother-sister program.
Yep.
And so I started talking to them, and I decided, it's a funny thing, I had that happen. I mean, usually I should, kind of debate before spending like $1,000 or whatever it was. I didn't debate. I just went home and signed up right away. It was crazy, and I did. And I can't talk about a lot of it because it's one of those things that if I tell you what you're going to do before you do it, it won't have the same impact on you.
Right. I can respect that completely.
But and I think, I bet several folks I know in our group of friends are doing this too and have done it. And it is a life-changing thing. It's more about becoming of integrity as a man, learning to be a man in a truer sense of the way.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is being honest about yourself and about your emotions and your vulnerabilities, being vulnerable. And I needed a big dose of that. And it's funny because, my wife will say, that point in our dating, that if I hadn't done that, we were on the way out. We were.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It changed me so much. My approach to that relationship became, she may disagree, but a lot more humble and just different,
Yeah.
And my feelings I became much more open with my feelings. And some folks have described this weekend training experience they do as a fifth step on steroids. That's kind of what it was. So I have been all pumped about that, and I still do it to this day. I still do we have meetings like every other week I go to with a group of guys that I love dearly. A different kind of recovery, I guess you could say, but we have the same bond.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my whole thoughts on the whole recovery world have been swinging pretty quickly, especially since this podcast just came around, because I started thinking of this whole thing of, I'm not limited once again. It really is a gift. It's something happened to me, and I was able to open myself to this other stuff and not, I'm not going to put myself on a pedestal from that standpoint, like a woo,
right,
kind of
stuff.
Right. But I am able to be open to stuff, and it's dawned on me, that I'm watching other people come to the path of recovery, which I think I love the definition that I found was to reclaim something that was lost or stolen.
Yeah.
It's basically my own self,
my
soul that I kind of gave away at some point. I lost it. It was part lost and part stolen.
Right.
I give some of that away voluntarily by using the drugs and alcohol and doing some of that. But some of it was taken from me too, from the calamity and the trauma and the other things that happened, and those things mixing together. Well, this recovery path, however you find it, and then I think that's what's cool about it, is like you went a certain direction on the 12-step path, and then you hit this mankind thing, and now I know that you've got some other things trajectory going on where you're still continuing to enlarge your spiritual growth in other manners, so we keep on doing that, enlarging our spiritual growth thing. I found I made a big growth spurt in my spiritual world through a practice of yoga.
Oh yeah.
And we have all these, and what a blessing it is that we got all these things out here in the world.
Oh yeah.
To explore that, like actually at some level go, okay, that stuff is actually sitting on the shelf for me.
Yeah.
When I'm ready for it. When the world, when my higher power, when whatever this is says, okay, Dan, have a look at that.
This is for you. Try this.
Yeah, and get to do that. So one of the people that I'm going to have on this podcast before long is I have her actually scheduled. So we might be next Sunday.
Awesome.
Is the gal who owns the yoga studio I go to, because she found herself through a yoga practice entirely. That it was her path to recover her original self.
Yeah.
Was through yoga.
Wow.
In its own, and that was so I love just the whole thought here, and like an evolution of maybe where the podcast looked like it was 12-step stuff, and it still is primarily.
Right.
But I also want to open the door to other paths, other recovery paths. than just 12 steps. Like yoga, like people find in mankind. I know people who, because that's not a chemical dependency recovery
Not
group.
at all.
But it's got the same growth thing and the same cultivating your spiritual awareness and and the same philosophies that look at. I think all the ancient spiritual teachings are that path.
They are, and that's kind of
Whether if they've gotten corrupted by us humans,
which we are good. We're just so good. That's our specialty.
Yeah.
We're very good at that.
Yeah.
So.
How long you been doing the mankind thing? How long ago was that?
It's 2014. So So what? That would makes it 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm doing that, and then Liz had gone to this place taking these classes, and I'll say the names of the places because they're helpful. A place called the Earth and Spirit Center. Some folks may have heard of that. It's actually a Passionist priest does it, but it's not Catholic. It is no way associated with. The teachings are not the Catholic, a quote Catholic branded lesson. But what they are is sort of a combination of Buddhism, Hinduism, and Christianity as far as the teaching, and a lot of it is just meditation practice. Which I went to with skepticism only because I had tried meditation I don't know how many times. 5 minutes I am like so done. I never could get that. What I thought was like an empty mind. Never could get there. So I tried this out. Ended up taking 3 more courses there, but again, just fell in love with it. And what they introduced me to, from a, I guess, theological standpoint, is really just the similarities of Christianity and Buddhism. And I remember the thought that was what was when he talked about like being, stillness, and that kind of a thing in meditation. Quoting the Bible, he said, because I was so anti-Bible. Or kind of had a prejudice against it. But there's a line is, be still and know that I am God. How that's translated, what that is. And you look at the actual words used, or he would translate the language and say, that's being, stillness, and awareness. That's Buddhism to right to the boom, big time. But what I learned to do was I learned how my thoughts don't stop in meditation. And I say that a lot because I've found, on my path, a lot of people who are convinced they can't meditate. It's not for them because they can't stop thinking. Well, if that were the case, nobody would be meditating.
Yep.
We all think while we meditate.
Yep. We
just learn how to watch it and observe it rather than be, riding the boat.
Right. Yep.
I learned that I am not my feelings. I'm not my thoughts. They are just these things that my brain's creating 24/7. And I do a lot of work to make them healthier, but the bad ones still come in, unhealthy ones still happen. But I learned about mindfulness, how at any given second, the world is like amazingly beautiful. Simple things, like one of the things in addition to meditation, we would do is like mindfulness exercises we got a list of, like in the shower. You have no idea how needling that feeling in a good way a shower is, how loud it is. It's amazing, and how much like water is trickling down your body, and how just a good sensation that is. Toothpaste, the smell and taste is like amazingly powerful. I had no idea because I was thinking so much about something else when I was brushing my teeth, and the list goes on. And what was most important was I kept hearing in my recovery meetings about how, our crazy minds, we just got to live with our crazy minds, and I realized, we still have crazy thoughts, and that's just what it's going to be. And I realized it's not what it's going to be. And that's one thing where I separate off from some of the recovery stuff I hear sometimes is no, it's not true. My truth is not that I am just going to have to live with that recovery thoughts. I'll have them, experience them like anybody else, but I can actually not be confined by that crazy squirrelish mind of mine that's happening right now while I'm talking.
Yeah.
There's a million thoughts going on that I can't even see right now.
Yeah.
I can tell you before I started, I had a million thoughts going in my mind too about, all the things that could go wrong. But see, I learned with mindfulness that there's an ancient technique that you don't have to do that. And so that kind of meditation was called Vipassana, and it's Buddhist. And it's basically...
Say it once again.
Vipassana. I've also heard it like pronounced Vipassana, but I checked it online and found out that it's called Vipassana. Is what I found. So, and it's basically just quiet. There's no anything, no chant, no, and not that anything else is better than another. But its goal is two things: to cultivate mindfulness, and then help you see the truth of things, which is a lot of the Buddhism.
Yeah.
To help you see the temporal nature of things and the nature of attachment. Once you are that mindful, you can then see those things, and also become more mindful and freer of your thoughts. That's kind of what Vipassana is, and it's sort of more in line with the original Buddhist methods. And they kind of explain that one interesting thing about Christianity versus Buddhism, same exact thing, pretty much, except Christianity talks more about the impact and the effects and being spiritually enlightened, just being that way, whereas Buddhism talks more about you got to sit for this long. They give, and that's yoga and all of this stuff that comes out, which I by the way, it's not, this is, I just want to say I'm so impressed and just really inspired by your yoga.
Well,
and when I heard you're going to be going off and doing that, it gives me chills. I'm just so happy for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I really am. It's just the best thing in the world. And I just love seeing that.
It's really changed me. It really has. And I used to say that, and I've said this on the podcast before, that I used to say that a meditation practice probably had a bigger impact on me than any other thing besides this 12 steps.
Amen.
The fact of the matter is, meditation is mentioned in the 12 steps, so it's actually part of it.
Yeah.
So it's not really something separate. Yoga is not, but it's a meditation type of thing. It's not specifically stated, but I think if and Christopher does a good job of putting this way in his 11th step of that through prayer, meditation, and other practices, we enlarge our spiritual life.
Right.
And so I think Bill. I think that's what Bill meant when he's talking about it. He just didn't have anything more than those tools in 1935 or whatever it was when he was writing it. But thank you for that. I know it's funny how I sit here. Usually somebody will I get to have some accolades as I sit here, and I'm humbled that I get to receive those. Thank you.
And and this is like to anybody out there. I have seen when people do this recovery with this 12-step thing. These are not isolated stories.
No, they are not.
And I'd hate to say there's like one way to do it and all that, but I will say that there's a rigorous way I've seen that brings about results that are different than what I knew was possible.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
That's the only way I can think of, and I'll have to leave that alone. Now
I like that.
Yeah. So anyway, I did that, and I took a class on the cosmos, which is like fascinating. I did mindfulness, then I did like insight, which is the seeing the true nature of things, which is the Four Noble Truths basically, and then I did a class on like environmental, where it talked about our connection to the world. And it actually had like environmental facts and stuff, and things about the earth and things about the universe and how it all started. And it was like my mind was blown by the time I was done with those 3 classes.
That is cool.
So, a sad thing happened in my life is when we talked about how much I love Keith and how, he always, his impression on me is still there. And by the way, I'm doing this kind of stuff. Keith is a very conservative Christian church he went to. And you know what? It was never a religious discussion. He totally praised everything I did.
Yeah.
Because it was like it wasn't a difference. It was just a different approach, and it wasn't this. We always think these politics and all these things we divide ourselves with matter that much. When it comes down to humanity, it's really not going to matter much at all. It's shit we're putting in our heads.
Right. Yeah.
And I could say more about that, but I'll leave that one alone too.
Yeah, and I think that's a testimony to sponsorship, especially in particular sponsors. I can say that my sponsor did a real healthy way of helping me cultivate some spirituality, some reliance in a higher power, in that, and not impose his on me. I don't really, to be honest, today I still couldn't tell you if you said, okay, explain your sponsor's conception of a higher power, or give me an idea of his spirituality. I couldn't sit here and tell you that.
Right.
Even today, even after being sponsored by him for 4 years.
Right.
It was not. It's like I said. It's a cross cultivation thing that doesn't make any difference what.
Yeah, I mean,
words we wrap around it.
Exactly, and it's kind of like what he was doing for me in my, like you said, my realm, and in his realm, I know working with me.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when he was dying, like I used to go in and I'd read to him because he couldn't read anymore. And he had and this is sort of like how I opened up to Christianity too, so much. He had a Christ Talks book with little sayings in them. Those things, I read them, my whole body from head to toe was like pounding with chills, as he would call them, God bumps. Powerful, powerful things, Christ-based things.
Right.
You know, so it's so clear how there's just like, it's all words, it's all head. There's not really the barriers that we think there are. Now, you know, of course, I changed sponsors for my spiritual path too. When I got a new sponsor, and I can't say much about that really. I want to leave that alone. But I will say, on my path, I began looking, and I did find a church. Now, here's the guy that, like, I'm going to tell you right now. 3 years ago, before I went there, I was convinced church never. It's just a man institution, and I've tried a bazillion different things. It ain't going to happen. And guess what? It happened. And this is not, I can talk about those things in this kind of podcast, but
yeah.
So, I'm a member of a Unity church, and Unity is now in every fiber of my being. I mean, what they teach is, and I realize I'm in love with that church. I mean, that just blows me away to hear myself say that.
Yeah,
it really does. And it's contributed, like when I talk about like things manifesting, that's a lot of where I'm getting that from, where I learned that. And I'm not going to talk about the belief system. What I usually say is, like, there were the founders of this thought process called New Thought, but somebody years later who wrote and is really hits on a lot of this, Emmett Fox.
Yeah.
So if you read him, he's not a Unity person. He's not talking about Unity, but you're getting a lot of the similar messages from him. And I hope I'm representing it correctly, but that's what I felt like.
Yeah, he landed with me as when I was working the steps with my sponsor. He recommended, suggested, whatever you want to ordered me, whatever you want to say, to not delve into other things until we were done with the steps. Don't muddy the water with reading, because I'm a big reader and I've always liked to do that, and I wanted to like reach out and branch. Well, the very first book after getting done with the steps that he presented me with to like read, like, here, I would like you to read this now. It was Emmett Fox, Sermon on the Mount. And it really landed a lot of spirituality to me, and like brought it down where all of a sudden it felt within my reach. Otherwise it was more like something I was like maybe aspiring after or something.
Okay, gotcha.
Where it actually brought it down to where I could actually get a hold of it tangibly all of a sudden.
Right. Another way to put it, I think, is just made it a real part of you. I mean, I kind of incorporated that into and that it is about making this a reality. And I think faith is important, but I got into a place where I started having experiences where it wasn't as necessary. So that's one part of my spirituality is unity, and several other things. And let me tell you what, I used to be, speaking of our minds, I used to have critical things I thought I would roll my eyes if any word New Age came up or crystals. My eyes roll, and here I sit with a crystal right in front of me. By the way,
and one on your neck.
This is mine. This is my primary crystal. It's not like fascinating or anything, but it's just my crystal. It's got the vibrations that it wanted me to have. It yelled at me in the. Can I say that where I got it?
Sure.
Happy's Meditation on 10th Street in Jeffersonville.
No, I think we can talk anything like that. I mean, that's just. I would not stop somebody from doing anything that might grow somebody, help somebody else. That is just whether if it's for Happy's store or for the guy who heard that and wants to go see Happy's thing. The only thing that can be coming out of that is good.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, that's where I got it. I was looking around for amethyst. I thought that, which also, by the way, is the drunk's crystal. Yeah. And that's what somebody said. No surprise, that was the actual crystal that you asked for, you wanted for, and this one just sat there and said, "Frank, get me."
Yeah.
So I did, and I know it's got the vibrations going on. In fact, this weekend I took it to what's called a Heartlight Diksha weekend. I'm going to talk about that some.
Yeah.
And because I wanted it to absorb some of those vibes, and you can't see me, but like, let me just say that at Unity, and that's why I say that too, because maybe somebody else will check it out and find out, holy crap, and maybe they'll say this is stupid, whatever, but. So I went to we got this thing in our oil flyer at Unity, and it's not a Unity thing at all, but it's just they put flyers about events that are happening in their church. One of the things like TSSR is the thing it's always going on that they house there. But there's a oneness weekend thing they call it, Oneness Blessing. I can't talk too much about oneness just because I know that I don't know everything. It's been through a lot of transitions. It comes from India, has a lot of Hinduism to it, which was not a thing I was familiar with. But it's basically a lot of this stuff, this New Age stuff, is about the fact that there's an enlightenment happening in the universe right now, and that things that were not as accessible are becoming more accessible. And I always say Diksha is an energy like the Holy Spirit. Pretty much is the best way I can say it. It's kind of freaky to say that, but that's how they can say it is a high level of energy. And so and I'm going to learn how to do this. Like at church, they have this time where oneness blessers get up and bless the congregation during meditation. I'm like, what is that? What is that unity? What is that stuff? So I went, and these people put their hand on my head, and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. I got chills in and out of my body like I thought it was I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was going to heaven and back. Never felt anything like this before. I mean, and it was hard. I mean, we were doing all these Hindu chants and all these things all weekend long. And very uncomfortable chairs, by the way. I hope they changed that. But, so my life was forever changed, So I'm walking around asking people, can I bless you? Can I bless you? I'm some crazy New Age oneness blessing man now.
Yeah,
I mean, I just do. I love doing it. But energy has become like a blessing, has become like a part of my core being and what I do. I never would have expected that.
Yeah.
So anyway. I
know you've got Reiki. That's another
Reiki,
place where you.
Yeah, I found Reiki. So I find oneness.
Because I kind of go back and again. So you're 6 years, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I come in. So there was 2 years before I knew you. And I watched you walk a path, And to be honest, when I first met you, and I've always been attracted to you at some level, but there was some tension inside of you for a while. Yeah. Just for instance, I remember one time, and I don't know what happened, but there was you were in some political, wound up into some politics kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so, you could read attention, and I don't want to put too much into my own thing, but I think that we see each other's energy and we feel it. I think at least I do, and I knew there was some tension. And today, I've watched as things went along. It's completely gone. You were so different from the guy that. I had one particular night. I remember you had something had happened in the world. Now I disconnected from a lot lot of that. So I wasn't I didn't know anything about what you were talking about, frankly. But I could tell it had affected you.
Yeah.
At a level was not healthy, really, because you were wound up in this. This political world thing that somebody had done something and it was contrary to what you thought was right.
Right.
Which probably, I'm not saying that it wasn't right.
Right. Exactly.
But it had you pinched up.
It had
really.
Pinched
and
up.
I don't see anymore. I can't remember the last time I've seen you even wound up. No. On anything on a negative. And I don't want to use that plane, but there is. It's a negative energy and a positive energy.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I mean by the negative, that plane forever, because you have an ease and even just an energy just to see you today. There's a difference in between what you were when I met you.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't that you were that wound up then either. Well, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But the growth is cool. It doesn't really matter to watch people, and that's one of the things about this community is that we get to know each other and we watch each other. On our journeys, and I think that's part of the reason why we do this together is so that we watch. We're mirrors for one another, kind of thing. Because that attracts me to see.
Yeah, it does. It does exactly.
In your personality, your aura today.
Yeah, and I, it's kind of like say Dan does this or I learn this. I will mention things because of that, like this kind of attraction and stuff. I can learn from you fast.
Right.
You can do something. I go, what's Dan doing? What's that? Kind of thing.
Right.
And that's what I said. One of the biggest things was this, try this then. And you kept talking about that. I remember you used to hold a crystal up and say, I thought this was stupid, but they said get some, so I did. Yeah. I'm like, I think they're stupid too, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, now there's crystals within arm's reach of me all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I have them in my pockets. I have them in my car. I have them here on the podcast table.
I'm all over me. They're all over me. Yeah. And but so let's go back to oneness a little bit. I was going to say what I experienced actually, and this sounds crazy to say. I'm just going to say it. I became enlightened. Powerful.
Yeah.
Now, I do remember one thing, and I'll say this as during one of the meditations. I mean, there were some that, like, we would breathe in and out really fast, really hard. I mean, it was crazy stuff we did. A lot of work, and I know Guru Gita is one of the chants we did. There's several other ones, but
we do a breath of fire in yoga where we breathe in and out.
Like
it ended with a physical exercise at the same time.
Yeah, and we don't do the physical exercise, but they do say, like, don't worry about your snot. That was the first thing he told us. You're going to have snot all over you. You just deal with it. Nobody's going to be embarrassed because we all have snot coming out of our nose when we're doing this.
Yeah.
So it was like 45 minutes of that, But during one of the meditations, clear as day, my eyes closed because my mind's eye really is active these days. My third eye is all over the place usually, like very, very hot and going. And so I saw this little boy kind of skip up to me, and he kind of got close to my ear, and he said, I'm not going to whisper, but it was like a whisper, I've known you a long, long time. And I just kind of thought, what? And he said, everything is going to be okay. Then he said, looked around like he was talking about the room that I'm in and what I'm doing, because isn't this wonderful? And then poof. And I've never been the same since. I mean, and I was told that was my inner child. I kind of thought it was God, and I'm beginning to realize what's the difference.
Yeah, right.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
So there was that. And
when was that?
That was last year. Only been a year. And then there's another one they do, and some of this stuff. One of the problems that happens when somebody sees these people coming from, because this guy went to India, spent thousands of dollars to get there, took planes in places where planes don't go. I mean, to this place where they teach this stuff, to bring it to the West. It's kind of like a world movement of enlightenment, and so people get word of it, and so somebody says, "Oh, I'm a oneness blesser. I can teach you how to do it. For this amount of money in 2 hours, you'll be a oneness." So that goes on right now. So that's one of the problems. I hate to say that because I don't want anybody to shy away from it, but just kind of mentioning that is another reason why some of it's not broadcast openly. It's almost like find it instead, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But the oneness is out there, but there's another one that's just basically a heart light, which is you call upon heaven and nirvana to come here now. I thought, what the hell? How do you do that? But I mean, I'm telling you, I feel every chakra on my entire body vibrates. When I first saw the oneness, I thought it was scary because people would laugh out loud and bliss and cry and go, "Oh!" Well, I did the heart light, and here I am. "Oh!" I couldn't stop myself. The energy was that powerful.
Huh.
So yeah, so you
I've not heard of that.
Maybe go ahead and call me certified, but I'm watching all of these people have all this energy that's just mind blowing. So I mean, it's just after that, that's kind of a point of no return, I guess. Now I'm not like that every day, but I'm just these weekends. I'm just trying to give some sense of what it's like, and it's good feeling. I mean, it's like bliss. So I cry, I laugh hysterically when I'm doing this stuff now, and when I go to this last weekend I did. So anyway, Reiki. So I came across that, and actually, what happened there, it was really kind of funny. Was somebody mentioned it to my wife at church? Said, "Hey, I just feel like you should learn Reiki."
Learn it.
Yeah, I just like out of the blue intuitively felt like she should, and I was supposed to tell you that. Boom, and they're gone. So I'm like, we do all this stuff together. I'm gonna let her have this one. I mean, seriously, she needs to have her own thing. We both do oneness. We both do this. We both do that. And but then I was like, I'm sorry, honey, but I'm told I got to do it. Sorry. And what she realized is what a blessing it actually. At first she was like, damn, why does he have to do everything?
Horning in on all my stuff.
Yeah, why is he doing that? And I'm like, yeah, I felt the same way. And then I realized, how many marriages do both people do this? So actually, because a lot of these people doing this stuff, the spouse is like, what are you doing? Not with us.
Right.
So that was a good thing. So I did that. I've done Reiki 1 and 2. I've been told I can heal folks. I mean, I've been told by people like, the last person I remember doing, they didn't tell me anything. So I just scanned their body, and I focused on one of their knees. And sure enough, she was having severe knee problems. I just know it. because I can feel the energy differences.
Yeah.
You know, and goes on and on. And one person, I saw the back convulse a little bit. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? And they had severe. It's like their muscles were like knotting all of a sudden just by touching her thing.
Wow.
And sure enough, she had severe back problems. She started arching and said her back was better. You know, so I'm thinking, I need to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Definitely need to do this stuff. And so I am, you know, and I mean, I don't know if you have time, I can do it now. Another time I do Reiki on people for free right now. And I'm not going to always do that, but I'm doing it now because I'm practicing. I'll be taking master in the fall. I'll become a Reiki master.
Very cool.
So
I do have time.
Okay, well, we'll do some Reiki if you want to then.
Yeah.
We can do it on a couch, on a chair, whatever, you know, you want. So that and
that's one of the ones that's on the shelf for me. I know that's something I'm drawn to do too.
Oh yeah.
But you're like there's this path thing, and that's the other thing. I have this patience in me today that I don't have to do everything at once anymore. That was something I used to think that I had to like rush into, almost like a scarcity kind of thing. Grab it all at once before it gets away.
Yeah.
And I no longer have that aura around me where I can walk into things at the pace the universe wants me to walk into it, and when the time is right, I will know that it's time to take that step. But it's one I actually am anxious. It's kind of like a thing that's on the shelf that I'm like,
well, maybe somebody's telling you it's about time to think about that. I don't know. That's up to you. But,
well, mankind and Reiki are two things that are coming and poking their heads up right now from other angles, and I believe in that Carl Jung, the synchronicity kind of thing. When I hear it over here, and then I come down the street and then I hear it here, and then I'm someplace unrelated to those places, and I hear it again.
Right.
Okay, I hear you. Universe, I'm listening. So those things are coming around. So I know they're in my short list.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, and somebody in our group of friends has been talking about doing an attunement for some of us that are ready for it. So you might,
Yep. Yeah, I've been talking to him.
You know about it? Okay, good. Good. Yeah, I'm like all these guys, because then we can hang out and do Reiki on each other.
Yeah.
Which would be amazing. Which is actually fun. It sounds crazy, but it is fun. It's pretty cool.
I've had quite a bit of experience with it through Happy's. Because Happy does, and I'm not sure if he's operating it right now, but for a while, like once a month or so, they had free Reiki that, you get like a 10-minute session or something. The intent was to expose people that didn't have any experience with it to it.
Yeah.
And so you could come and sign up, and they had some Reiki masters in there that would do some Reiki on you for 10, 15 minutes a person. And, and then you could also, part of it was if you wanted to explore it further, you could get with one of the practitioners.
Right.
To explore further on a private level, and I really had great experiences with it every single time.
Okay,
I mean, every single time it's like, So I get that with you, today, and certain people, and I always am funny about talking about it, because when I feel like there's something, like when I talk about it, I feel like at some level I might be excluding other people. But I've always had this thing when I get around certain people, when you were talking about like they touch the top of your head. I don't know if this is, God bumps, Kundalini is another term. This stuff. These the hair standing up on the back of my neck in a good way.
Oh yeah.
Not in a fearful type of. Not in that. Sometimes that's used in that way, but I have those feelings with certain people, and that's one of the things that's changed with you, that I didn't ever feel that before.
Right.
And I've had, and I'm it feels funny to talk about it, Frank, don't it? When you start talking about like say the word that you're enlightened.
Yeah,
that's hard to come out,
That's weird.
And I don't know what is going on with me exactly, but I have some energy pickup stuff that I didn't have at a certain time, actually I didn't understand.
Right.
I should say, because I started thinking back, when I was in my late teens, I got a job at a place in making sheet metal stuff. They made sheet metal. They made ice and beverage dispensers.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was nothing. It was just a drafting kid out of high school.
Right.
But there was a tool and die maker there that I wanted to be close to him.
Huh.
He attracted me. And it turned out that he was actually a preacher someplace.
Huh.
But like when he was gone from the office,
I
would sit in his chair.
Wow.
And feel energy from sitting in his chair, and would be like kind of glued there. I wouldn't want to move. I would get those tingles and that chilling and that kind of stuff. And then get the same thing when I was with him. So when I'd have the opportunity to get assigned to him, because I did drawings and stuff, and he's a tool and die maker, he'd need drawings made for what he was doing. So so I'd be working with him, So whenever I got the opportunity to work with him at Durham Flies,
He likes me. or she likes me.
I'd get that feeling, So that was the first one that really touched me, that I really can think back and remember that. And it scared me a little bit. Like it was an unhealthy attraction, and maybe there were some things that I did that I had some things happen to me when I was a kid that made me question my sexuality and different things like that. So I got to wondering, I was thinking whether if this was something unhealthy and didn't know what to do with it.
Sure.
So then I traveled down this recovery path, and I really can't think of anybody that really rang my bell like that until I got into recovery and I started bumping into guys in 12 steps that would give me those same feelings.
Right.
One of the first guys that I ever, his name was Rick, and one of the first guys I met him on the very first night that I came to a meeting with a desire to stop drinking. I've been to meetings before without that.
Right.
Court ordered and things like that. But I come into a meeting and this guy comes up and talks to me, and instantly I felt that, and I feel it with people. And then like when we got a big group of guys together at times, there's an energy, a build up of energy in our circle that you feel it, of that. Almost like see like the cartoonish electrons and protons and
bouncing around
and energy stirring. And so that's something to come back full circle on that. That's something that I realize now with you that I either didn't pick up then or has changed.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm by a long ways from being able to make any kind of judgment on that.
Sure. Yeah.
But it has changed, and that's a difference. And it feels kind of funny to tell people that. You know what I mean? I still struggle with explaining it. And so like I'm behind a microphone saying it to how many people are going to be listening to this, and if it's real vulnerable is what it is.
Yeah.
To state that these
because
energies and picking up this stuff about people.
Yeah, I think for me it's a sign of ego, because we stereotype and judge ourselves and others, and so I always stereotyped and judged people who talked about this stuff and did this stuff, believed this stuff, and now that I'm one of them, I sometimes my ego steps in and says, "Don't embarrass yourself. These people are going to think you're crazy." Yeah, and that's when I said when I talked.
That's exactly the way I'm saying to myself. That's exactly what I'm saying to myself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean oneness. When I made that sound, I'm like, oh my God, people hear me. They're going to think it's some kind of a holy roller, crazy, whatever. But it happened to me, so I'm sorry. It is what it is, and I'll say it, and whoever needs to hear it will, and maybe the rest will think I'm crazy, and that's okay.
Yeah. The other thing we say around here is we speak from our own experience, right?
Exactly.
And you can't take my experience away from me.
Yeah.
This is my experience.
Right. Right.
Believe it, disbelieve it, whatever. Think I'm crazy. Do what you need to do.
Right.
But this is really my experience, and I know it to be true.
Yeah. Exactly. And so it's funny. You think of a guy that was raised Catholic, became agnostic, right? There's one more thing too. Is sitting here doing all this stuff. It just and thought this stuff was so stupid. All about science, and they really don't. They're not. They're actually the same thing. Science is also not exclusive from spirituality, but I thought that it was, and would only let a doctor do healing when this energy stuff was stupid. So one other thing that we did was we went to a thing called Akashic Records 2-day thing, which is a whole other area that came to me. It's to make it less freaky or maybe more freaky. I don't know how you look at it. But Edgar Cayce, there's the same idea of the consciousness like expanding in the world right now. Edgar Cayce did this. I don't know if you know his story or
I've heard the name. I don't know a lot.
Yeah, he's a guy that he was dying, and the doctor told the family just an hour or two, and he was up in his room, and he gets out of and all of a sudden he walks out of his room totally healthy. It's all illness gone. And he said he went into a trance. He doesn't understand. He went into a trance. Well, he managed to get this trance again and again, and would say all this stuff about metaphysical stuff, and could also tell you what's wrong with your body and what needs to be done about it. And so it got to where he was getting letters from all over the world, and physicians were calling him or contacting him because they had a patient they've tried everything they can do, and they cannot figure out what's causing the symptom. He would tell them what it was. And I remember one time reading about one case where there was an abnormality. There was an abnormality in somebody's stomach or something going on that he told him where it was, what it was, and how to remove it.
Wow.
And he was accepted by the AMA. So, but now, now what they do is they have there's an attunement, same thing like Reiki. You have this attunement, And then there's different things you go through in training and vibrational prayer. I read a very specific popular book on it. So now I actually can sit there, and the Akashic records are referred in the Bible as a book of life. And it's basically a vibrational field at a very, very high level where all the information about every soul is always recorded there. So you can, and it's crazy sounding. I mean, you look at it, got these people called the Lords of the Masters who put this through your guides. Put it through your guides on down to where if a person will ask a legitimately, not like, well, I'll make $1 million, but, or, am I good at this? But a legitimate question, and I get mental images in my mind, okay? And just to make it as an example, the first person I practiced on in this class was a teacher, and I saw an easel. So my interpretation was off. I'm like, I think you must be using an easel in your classroom or something to do with an easel, but it's a small one and sitting up. She said, I used to draw years ago, and just like a month ago, I decided I may want to get out my easel again and put it in my basement. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that or not. See, so I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And I see that all the time. So I get convinced that it's real, but I just say that because that's one of the other things I do that I never, ever would have in a million years imagined, that I would say enlightened. Talk about energy, crystals. Yeah. And now it's like commonplace for me.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's kind of where I'm at. I also am looking at doing some things differently with my mode of living. I'm definitely heading in that direction more and more. And, more about that later. I've kept that energy protected.
Yeah.
So I still don't talk about it even though I'm about ready to.
I can understand that.
But I don't yet.
Yeah.
But it's all down the same line,
Very cool.
Yeah. But I still can't drink today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not even, it's not even on the table. The more and more I feel this other thing going on with me, the less and less that's even in the realm, because I know that it'd be just like I think that, like, if, let's say this table had all these crystals and everything on it.
Yeah. I
think that I can jerk the tablecloth and everything will stay okay. And taking the drink is jerking the tablecloth.
Yeah.
And my mind will kind of somewhat still tell me that that's there. But I really know. Oh, yeah. That I can't.
Oh, yeah.
I can't jerk the tablecloth out without upsetting the entire apple cart. And we were talking earlier, there's just things going on in my life that I can't explain any other way. The fact that I get to do this, the retreats, the way that I'm walking down this path on a career, and the changing the guard there, and other cool things that are going on. I like that Mark Houston says, I smell more. Right. And I know there's more around the corner. Right. And I also know how to, and I've watched some people. I shared this in one of these podcasts, one of these ones where I just did a monologue and it caught me, but we get to watch these people recover and do place principles and start exploring different new things, and I love it when, like, we were on the group the other day and they're going, so what's up with those crystals, and you're kind of like, that's just a seed, just kind of going,
yep, yeah,
whether they're ready or not, if they ever will, whatever, but that kind of tickles me because I'm going, I remember being there too, man.
Oh, yeah.
And you see you doing that, and you watch these people getting this, like you said, through this rigorous practice of this, getting somewhere very quickly, right? I mean, they're getting a lot of recovery. They're changing their whole, they're amazing. Transforming, so quickly, that it's just super cool. But the flip side of that is, man, you can unflip that just as fast. Oh, yeah. Just every bit as fast, man, and maybe faster.
And it's important, that's why I said that. It's important to say, that. And also that, concluding the story with, and now I've made it. Because I've never made it.
Yeah, right.
I'm never going to make it. And I see that.
That's what I think that term enlightenment can look like, to some people can look like a finish line, and that's not. I know that's not what you're saying.
No, it means for me, it means an awareness and a path that I'm on. It doesn't mean I'm even far along the path. It just means that that's what's happening. Spirituality, awareness is what's happening to me now. That's all I mean by
action, not a period.
Right, and it's kind of a sense that you should be doing that. It's part of the other part. what was I gonna say another. Oh yeah, one of the couple other coincidences, and I'm thinking I'm ready to wrap it up because it's but
Yeah, we're at an hour and 49 minutes.
wow, yeah,
It goes fast.
Yeah,
I try to keep them under 2 hours, so this is about right, and
Yeah.
it seems to be what happens lately. Is that someplace between an hour and a half and 2 hours is where people land, and that's
Right.
also the size of the file
Yeah,
that uploads easy. And I
good.
think a 2 hour,
Yeah,
I think it seems to be about right because that's what keeps happening.
wow. Well,
And I like to actually ask. That's one of the things I kind of like to do is say, okay, we are kind of getting there. If you have any concluding thoughts,
just what's come to mind that I better say because it did pop in, and one of them was at the oneness thing, about my career change. I was selling insurance, and it just spiritually didn't feel like anything, and I just knew I couldn't do it. When I decided I couldn't do it, I was doing the same job, and I could give you a free policy of $1 million life policy, and you'd say no. I mean, it's like the universe said, yeah, you're done. And so I went from being good at it to sucking at it overnight. And also, I just knew I was done. So I just quit my job. I didn't even, say, hey, I need to plan ahead. And so I was at this oneness blessing, and we're supposed to set an intention. And I was like, I need something to show me I'm doing this right and to make this possible for me to just explore for a while. That was what I want. So we get done with it that night, and I turn my phone back on. There's a phone message. Of course, it happened about that time, really. And this woman, this insurance agent, had a desperate situation come up. She doesn't want an employee. She just needs somebody that can freelance off and on for her. And she didn't even think of me, but she called somebody else, my old boss. She said, well, call Frank. And that's not a coincidence.
Right.
That means Frank gets the freedom. He can earn money working for a couple of different people without being all caught up in it. This is what we give you,
Yeah.
So, and I always, when I talked about Hannah and that period of time when I was dying and all of that, I always like to tell the story of a dream that I had the night before Hannah did her intervention, set it up. And it was my wife. It was my second wife, Lee. And she was saying, hey, I'm sorry. What?
You're fine.
Okay, so she was trying to communicate to me. She was in the dream trying to communicate, and she made it clear I'm not spiritually around the veil the right way yet, where I can tell you what I have to tell you, but it's important. You need to listen to me. I'm going to tell Hannah. Hannah will tell you, and the next day, intervention.
Yeah. Really cool. I've heard that before. That is super cool. Gives me chills.
That just popped in my head, so I thought maybe I'll finish with that one.
Yeah, that is a great concluder, man.
Yeah.
That gives me chills, no doubt. Stuff happens.
It does.
And one of the cool things that I get to tell guys when they walk around and I get these opportunities to bump into guys and they're looking for something. I call them seekers.
Sure.
They're looking, whether if it's looking to get sober, it's looking for they're looking.
Right.
And for a new way. They're looking for some better in their life,
right.
and I can tell my story, which is frankly fairly amazing. But I can go,
I've heard it.
But hey, man, if you don't come with me, because I'll show you another bunch of guys that have the same kind.
Right.
Of I'm not unique here. I'm not putting myself.
I
let me introduce you to more of these guys that have this happening in their lives. And
right.
You're one of them. That you get to share this stuff and have a very. It also seems to be a group that has a really gifted way of communicating it too. In much different ways, but it's impactful when you hear the stories, and then people are able to verbally deliver their story in a way that really lands with people. You hear it. That's what people feel when they come to our group on Tuesday nights, and the same thing now on Thursdays, and the people we're sharing. It's just it's impactful stories that land with people and impact them.
It's amazing. It really is amazing.
And it does kind of like our second step thing, man. It begins to allow people to start to come and to believe that it can happen for them too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And you'll agree. I have seen more people just like transform in ways that you wouldn't think would be humanly possible. Sometimes I freak myself out sometimes thinking, how the hell do these people come and become these other people?
Yeah.
It happens a lot. Yep. And I don't know what it is, how we have a way of communicating with each other somehow or another.
Yeah. Yeah, like the words that come is from the big book is the huge rearrangements and displacements.
Yes.
It's just like people transform.
they're not the same.
Yeah.
In a
Very
good way.
cool. Yeah, right, yeah. Well, thank you for coming in here, man, and sharing your story today. We're just under 2 hours, so that actually works out perfect every time.
Right.
I don't know how. And then once I put on some music on the front and back end of it, it ends up landing exactly
Right.
where we need it to be. I'll do real quick to remind you to come to spiritualunderground.org. Show notes, pictures, and a contact me page. Amazon, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery by James Christopher Cone. The 12 Steps for Everyone opens the gates that to get that. Also is inside of that is this rigorous way of doing these steps that helped me get to where I'm at today. And the music, don't forget Darren Frank. It's his music's wrapped around this podcast, and I will invite anybody. I've done this a couple times. Is that if you're in recovery and you have music that you think would fit this podcast, I would love to put it on here and give you the musical credit for it too. Obviously, so anything that direction is welcome, and you can do that on that contact me page on spiritualunderground.org. Thank you all for listening. It's just a pleasure. It's a gift that I get to do here, this receiving this gift of being able to participate in my recovery in ways that I would have never believed were possible. Peace out.
On the left side, except for me, I'm strutting on the right. They stand around all day and curse the darkness. I open up both arms and grab the light. God bless the one who's individual. Shine on and let your soul fly free. Keep your opinions, I don't need them. What's right for you doesn't work for me. Oftentimes they say live in the real world. Well, take a look at what that's done for you. Got you all balled up and rolling round in circles. Keep your real world and that narrow view. God bless the one who's individual. Shine on and let your soul fly free. Keep your opinions, I don't need them. What's right for you doesn't work for me. Just go your own way, 'cause you always have a choice. Sing along with your song, 'cause I love to hear your voice. Follow what's in your heart and always speak the truth. Be individual, I'm individual. How about you? One more time, God bless the one who's individual. Shine on and let your soul fly free.